there, where you going? No, man, you got the right classroom. Come on in, take a seat beside me, my friend. Hey, look, here come T.A. Charlie. Let's see what he got to say.
Welcome to the Road to Concord.
Hey there,
With
where you
Professor
going?
Joe.
No, man,
Oh,
you got the right
man.
classroom. Come on in, take a seat beside me, my friend. Hey, look, here comes
We're
T.A.
just a bunch of
Charlie.
amateurs
Let's see
here.
what he got to say.
Tortoise on a loop, baby.
Yeah. Let's do this again. Welcome to the Road to Concord with Professor Joe Bakanovic. Homeroom is on Rumble. You just go to Rumble and search the channels for the Road to Concord. It's one word. When you find it, you go ahead and you click follow. It might mean you got to set up an account, but it's fast, it's easy, it's free. I did it. You can do it. For those technologically challenged members of the class, we've made it a lot simpler. We're just on Facebook and YouTube now. After the show, it's uploaded to Podbean, iHeartRadio, and Spotify for our disloyal supporter. And you can go to the blog page. That's the roadtoconcord.com. That's where you find all your show notes, study notes, and handouts for the class. The phone is working. If you know how to use it, then that's great. If you don't, email us and we'll think about it. Finally, you can email Professor at joe@theroadtoconcord.com. Yeah, we sure are. He's a little slow, but he'll eventually get around to emailing you back. This show is currently mainly listener sponsored, and I don't know why.
I don't know why.
If you're interested in advertising your business on here and you don't think you'd be embarrassed, send us an email and we'll talk about it. With that said, we do ask for your participation on a value for value basis. If you find this show of any value to you, provide an equivalent portion of your labor and treasure through the donate link on the Road to Concord blog page, show description on Rumble and in the comments on the other feeds. And thank you to all of those who do support this show, and we still don't know why, but at least you're here and we appreciate you being here. And oh boy, yeah, we're working on improving things, but it takes us a while because we're I've done some of this stuff professionally, but I don't have all the professional tools, so I'm using the tools that I have.
Is that your excuse?
I'm going to use that as an excuse.
You do know what the 3% rule is, right? You do know what you got to be 3% smarter than the equipment you're trying to operate.
Well, yeah, that's part of the
you and
problem.
I are both in trouble.
Yeah, we're in fact, I'm just going to put this out here because we do have loyal supporters. We have no donuts. I don't think donuts are involved in this money. But anyway,
processed sugar has been sworn off.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. Anyway, but for reals, we do ask for financial support and stuff. But if there's anyone out there that has graphics, audio, or videography expertise and would like to assist us, well, please send us an email. Yeah. We would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. The tortoise has helped us, but the only reason that I haven't asked the tortoise for help right now is because the tortoise is busy.
Yeah. He's and that's fine. We're working it. You'll see improvements as we go along. It's going to take us a while. Our AI, we're training our AI to do some graphics, so we'll see how that works.
And as we're finding out, AI kicks back as it gets farther and farther along into the real world.
It does. So
all right,
we'll see what we can do. Anyway, all right.
Let's pretend to get going here. Real quick, just a few more little housekeeping notes. Please forgive me. Stay with us, please. But this is for the class members. We called you disloyal on one case, but what happens is I keep a file of everybody who has donated to the show. And if you're not a regular donator, when I went through and I was sending out the new book for our sister channel, We Who Are Lost, that's one of our other channels, I was sending out our PDF to regular donators, those who support the show. And if you've donated once or twice, you're still just as valuable to us. Don't get me wrong. It's just that idiot me probably didn't go far enough down in the list of saved emails to find you. I went through the last 2 months and I sent to everybody, well, a couple of you donate to us in other ways. And the bad brain housing group I have here, it's all rusty and everything. It forgot those folks. And they're probably more important than the ones that are in the email because most of them are family. So sucks to be family. Y'all know how that works. All right, let's get this show on the road. I hate when I go to a video and people are doing what I'm doing right now. It just bugs me. So I don't want to do to y'all what. Anyhow, let's just get going today. I want to talk to you about ideology. And I almost wore my Velociraptor shirt today because I've got philosopher cap on and I've got the sociologist cap on. I want to talk to you about ideology and why ideology is important. Now, this serious, folks. This is going to be one of those, for some folks, it's going to be one of them days where I bend your brains and make things hurt. And you're going to be like, why am I doing this to myself? What exactly do I mean by ideology to begin with? Well, and I'm going to use my own definitions, but in a short tabletop, kitchen tabletop way of putting this, it's what you believe and why. Because if you can't tell me why you believe something, I don't want to hear it. I don't. I really don't. You might think it's snotty and rude, but I really don't care. If you've got an opinion and you can't tell me why you've arrived at that opinion, take it somewhere else, man, because it's called an uninformed opinion. And I really don't. It's a waste of my time. And if you consider that arrogant, rude, snotty, condescending, whatever, fine. That's a good thing. I don't care. In this case, I don't care. You have to be able to explain, at least in some sense, why you believe the things you believe. Otherwise, you don't really believe them. You might believe you believe them, but you don't. You haven't thought it through. And that's a problem with a lot of folks these days. That's a problem with mankind in general, because that requires work, real work. And I'll be honest with you, man, I'd rather do the ditch digging thing than to sit down with your favorite beverage, adult or otherwise, on the back porch and start trying to hammer out, well, what do I really believe and why? Because, dude, that'll make your head hurt, even for me. And a lot of times, if you're doing it and doing it right, you'll come face to face with, oh my God, I don't really believe that. Or why do I believe that? Where did I get that mess from? If you're being honest with yourself. So ideology is basically your worldview, what you think or what you believe to be true, and what you value, what you think is right and wrong. That's your ideology. And whether you like it or not, that's also the basis for your political ideology. There's no such thing as private and public or secular and religious idea. They're all the same. They're lumped into each other. So now that brings us to principles. And again, I'm using my definitions, folks. You might differ in your definition. Okay, assign whatever word you want to it today. I'm using ideology for your worldview and what you actually believe and why. I'm going to use principles as your guardrails. So once you have your ideology worked out, you put principles in place. And these are guardrails. These are kind of like rules to help you stay true to what you claim to be your ideology. So let's say in the case of the United States, we've got a constitution. The Constitution is actually our guardrails. That's our laws. That's our principles. It's not our ideology. The ideology is found in the Declaration of Independence. In that sense, your ideology is the what and the why. Your principles are the how. Those are your guardrails for how you live your ideology. These are very important things, folks. Man cannot live a consistent, coherent life if he has not, or she, I'm using capital M, man here, human beings, if you haven't worked these things out, you just become a pinball and you bounce back and forth from one stimulus to another in your life. And it leads to a sense of what, sociology would call, or one sociologist called, anomie. a lack of connection to society, a lack of security. It leads to feeling insecure, and insecurity leads to fear. And that having a worked out ideology and a set of principles in your life can help you manage the fears of daily life. Now, the philosopher Thomas Sowell, no, Joe, he's an economist. Have you ever read Thomas Sowell? He's a philosopher. By the way, do y'all know what PhD means? You know what the PH stands for?
Piled
Philosophy.
higher and deeper.
Yeah, but the PH actually stands for philosophy, D for doctorate. It means a doctorate of philosophy in economics. That's all it means. So, Dr. Thomas Sowell, doctorate of philosophy of economics, he's a philosopher. He has argued that most people come down into one of two general camps, schools of thought. He calls them the constrained and unconstrained view of the world. And he defines them as, if you belong to the constrained view of the world, you think that human nature is fixed and it cannot be changed, which generally means you're not all that prone to believing or accepting the ideas of evolution. If you are of the unconstrained view, you think human nature is malleable and can be directed and that can be changed. So if you think that you're born male or female based on XY or XX chromosomes, you belong to the constrained view of human biology. If you think your gender can be changed or is socialized or is somehow or another fluid, you belong to an unconstrained view of human biology. Now, here's what Dr. Sowell doesn't say that I'll add to this. Usually, and I'm talking in generalities here, and I'm not trying to use this as a fallacious means of argument because I'm not going to draw definitive conclusions from it. I'm going to say, as a general rule of thumb, those folks who are of the constrained view, that's usually because you are a person of faith. And I didn't say religion for a reason. You recognize objective reality. Now, a lot of folks would think of what I just said. If I'm looking for an example, I say, okay, well, Thomas Sowell, he is a man of faith. He recognizes objective reality. From my reading and listening to him, I'm pretty sure he's part of the constrained view. But somebody might read Ayn Rand and say, well, look, she's a constrained view as well. No, she's not. Well, Joe, she recognizes objective truth. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. She understood logic okay, but she did not understand objective truth. There's a lot of people who you might think they do, but they don't. Not in the sense of constrained and unconstrained. I'll get to that in a minute. If you're of the unconstrained view, my words, my opinion of how to use Dr. Sowell's constrained and unconstrained, you're cultic. Yes, you're cultic. You have an idea of subjective reality. Your notion of reality doesn't depend on external forces. If you're objective, that means reality exists outside of yourself and outside of your perception. So we have modern day scientists who say that reality is formed by man's perceiving it. They are of the unconstrained view of thinking. They're cultic. For them, they have a subjective sense of reality. Reality is formed by their perceiving it, their experience of it. So for them, what is true for you might not be true for them. But for somebody of the constrained view, what's true for you is true for me, whether you like it or not. It's got nothing to do with how we feel about it. It's irrelevant. Truth is truth. That's capital T truth on this show. Little t truth, subjective, meaning it depends on the person that's perceiving it. That's the unconstrained view. And that's why it's cultic. I'm going to give you my own definition of cult here. And it's generally correct. I'm going to boil it down for the purposes of our philosophical discussion today. If you are following a person or a trend, That's cultic. So let's say in terms of, a lot of people think of religion. Okay, well, if you're following faith, there's only one true faith because there's only one creator. Now, I'm not sitting here to get you into a theological debate about which religion or not. You'll notice in the language I'm choosing to use today. So if you are following the one true creator and the way that one true creator told you to worship them and to obey them, how their world works, whichever creator you decide to pick on, to choose to follow, that's faith. But as soon as you get into something that man has created, now you're dealing with religion. Okay, so it's a cult of personality. Whenever you get into religion, you're still dealing with cult of personality. The Mormons, that's Joseph Smith. The Moonies, that's Moon. The Seventh-day Adventists, that started with one person. The Jehovah's Witnesses, that started with one person. Islam, that started with one person. The Roman Catholic Church, that started with Constantine. It really did. That's where that started. It's all cultic personality. We'll say, okay, what do I do with Hinduism? Well, that's a form of polytheism. And you pick and choose which God you're going to recognize. Now you're in the cult of self. Ayn Rand was in the cult of self. She was an atheist. She believed in her own rules. She's cult of self. Most of us believe in cult of self, whether we realize it or not. And that's part of our problem as human beings, part of the problem of the human condition. So what's this thing with control in the world? Why is everybody always after control? You see, I'm going to take it from faith and from the constrained and unconstrained view. They all work together in my mind. And it's all about control. If you belong to the constrained view of the world, well, then it's outside of your control. You don't control reality. The Creator did, or does. If you're unconstrained, you think you can change those things that the Creator made. So you're seizing control over the created things in this world. And I don't mean manipulate, I mean control them. Well, where's the big separating dividing line here in these two personalities, the constrained and unconstrained? The constrained person is willing to put themselves under somebody else's authority. Bend the knee, so to speak. Bend the knee to the king, or recognize, I hate the guy who's doing it, but in the military we called it, rank, not the person. So I hate the captain, but I recognize the rank. So I'm bowing to the system that's in place in the military, the chain of command. Unconstrained tends not to do this. Unconstrained tends to kick at the boards, so to speak. They're always looking to break the rules and bend the rules to themselves. They look for the loopholes because they want to be in charge. They don't want to bend their knee. People will say, well, that's the quest for freedom. And no, it isn't. That's the libertarian. The libertarian wants the cult of self. And this is why if I put 100 libertarians in the room, I will never get a functioning society, because I have 100 little gods in that room. Whereas if I put 100 constrained people in a room, they will eventually organize themselves into some form of social hierarchy that resembles a form of either a commonwealth or a republic, because they recognize an authority above themselves of some sort. So this is why I say a lot of times with the constrained and unconstrained, or you're following faith or cult, they're all part of, these things align, at least in my thinking. And it's all about control. If you're constrained, you're not in control. It's your job to just conform to the one who is. If you're unconstrained, you want control. The control, it's not in your hands, but you're seeking to grasp hold of control. You want to be the one in control. So faith is of the mind that things in this world are fixed and you conform to them willingly. You bend your own will. Cultic, that's control of personality. and you think you can change man's nature and purpose, and you're working to seize hold of that control. You want to control everything around you. So now take what I've just discussed and move this to the war on capitalism. Capitalism is a boogeyman. What? It's not capitalism. Capitalism can function even under communism. Say, no, Joe, Marx said communism is when everybody owns everything. Yes, exactly. Capitalism, that would just put the means of control in the hands of the people. But capitalism is about acquiring the means of control. That's all that is. Conceptually, what's the form and function of capitalism? To allow a person or group of people to acquire the means of production. Well, the state can own that. An individual can own that. A corporation can own that. Partnership can own that. A community can own it. A society can own it. The whole people of the world can own it. Capitalism's a boogeyman. It's been used to take your mind off of what is actually in view. Why? Because what's actually at heart here, what they're really attacking, is not capitalism, it's the free market, the uncontrolled market. Well, you say, well, that's unconstrained. No, not in this sense. A free market actually lives in the constrained worldview, because the free market is governed by natural law. And natural law says that individuals should have the right to choose their own way of living, their own paths within the confines of natural law. Now, this isn't a natural law show. But what I'm saying is the free market lies in the unconstrained, the realm of the unconstrained, because it operates according to rules that are outside of man's control. This is why people go after capitalism, because they want control of the market. Capitalism's a boogeyman. It's a convenient prop that's used to attack. It's harder to say, well, I want to end the free market. Okay, just the name free market, if you say you want to end, that would cause people to give you a hard time. They would push back against you because now they understand exactly what you're really after. So capitalism's a boogeyman. And if you have a free market, you can't control that, because you and I are allowed to enter into agreements of our own free will, and the government has no say in it. Other individuals have no say in it. This is like the homeowners associations, where you got Karen running around measuring things to see if you're out of line with the homeowner. She's probably part of the ones who set those regulations. She wants to control other people. We're going to get to why. Where's that motivation come from? We're going to get to that in a few minutes. But the free market is what they're really after. And part of that is if you have a free market, you can't control people. You can't control them. You can't control where they get their livelihood from or their dependency. And that's what this is all about. This is about control. Because if a person is dependent on you or dependent on something you control yourself, then you control them. So if you can control their food, you control them. If you control their language, you control how they think. If you can control where they're allowed to go, you can control their influence in the society. It's all about control. It's all about control. Control has a counterpart. Just mentioned it a little while ago. Submission. Submission to the creator or to self even. So what do I mean by submit to self? Joe, is that cultic? No, not necessarily. If I sit down, especially earlier in life, it'll be a longer help to you if you do this earlier in life. If I sit down and I set out my worldview, my ideal, and then I build my principles by which I'm going to live my ideal, I'm submitting to self. I'm submitting to the authority I laid down. So in that sense, Ayn Rand submitted to herself. It's just that her ideal was based on self. She was of an unconstrained worldview, whether she realizes it or not. Now, I'm of a constrained worldview. I realize that all these things are outside of my control. The creator set down what is and isn't moral, right or wrong. So I want to be in line. I chose to be in line with the creator. And I went on a quest to learn the creator's rules. And I aligned with the one I think is the true creator. So I have submitted to him, but I've also submitted myself to him, which means I've submitted to myself as well. That's what I chose. But now you can say, well, I submit to logic and reason, or to truth, or to science. And you might submit to those things, and that's a form of self-submission. But it all depends on who's in control of those things. Logic and reason. Ayn Rand was very good with it, but she didn't use right reasoning. She used herself as the ultimate arbiter of what was and wasn't true. Right reasoning submits to natural law, to the laws of the creator of the universe. So where Ayn Rand would say, okay, I'm going to collect Social Security because I paid into it and it's mine. Right reasoning would have said, well, first of all, the law never promises anybody to get any of that money back. Second of all, my ideology says that I'm not supposed to impose on the will of another person, and imposing on the fruits of their labor is imposing on their will. Therefore, my principle said I will never do this and never accept the ill-begotten fruits of another person's labor. I will never force them to work for me, which is a principle right out of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. She would have said, okay, I'm not going to accept Social Security, because she would have been principled. But in this case, her principle was self-interest, self. She was a cult of one. She did not right reason in that case. She did similar things with abortion. So although a lot of people, this is she's a heroine of the libertarian model because they worship the cult of self. I have submitted to an authority outside myself and my control. So when I submit to logic and reason, I submit to logic and reason guided by natural law. When I submit to truth, I submit to capital T truth, not my truth, not your truth, not the truth of quote unquote science or even reason. I submit to the truth of the creator's world. And sometimes you can't find that truth in either science or logic. There's a truth about beauty. You try to define aesthetic beauty, visual beauty. There's a truth about inner beauty, beauty of character, poise, charm, virtue. You can't quantify that. You can't define that in either logical reasoning or scientific terms, and yet it exists. So how do you define that? Well, that's that ephemeral, metaphysical aspect of what I've submitted to. Others, the only way they can define that is cult of self. They define it by their personal tastes. They want control, even over that. So tyranny ultimately is about control. So if you have a tyranny of a single tyrant, it's the control of that tyrant over everything in society, or a king. If you have an oligarchy, saying I got a Politburo in Russia. Even the Politburo has an ultimate person in charge of the Politburo. So it's always, even if it's a group of people in control, there's always one person fighting to be the one that wants to be God of the world, king of the world, over everything. It's about control. So bad government is always about people looking for control. A good government, quote unquote, air quotes here, good government, it's about republicanism. What? Representativism. It's about representing the smallest minority in the society, the individual. So people are going to submit to the principles that form around, that sustain and form and describe and allow a Republican form of government to work. So that's going to end up with a commonwealth, and a commonwealth is going to have a free market, and the laws and stuff of a republic are going to be set according to natural law so that they protect everybody equally. That's what our ideal means, that all men are created equal. Not that we're all the same, have the same talents and same skills and same abilities, but that we're all equal in our moral claim to life and to our rights. And therefore, society should recognize your equality of rights against each other. That's the ideals and principles of a Republican form of government, and their laws will be written accordingly. That's what our country was intended to be, was a Republican form of government. So the problem with this is, ultimately, if you're in that type of a free society, a free Republican society, that rests on the idea of living according to your ideals, which means you obey the principles. Well, these ideals and principles must be common to that society. If that society has several competing ideals and principles, it's not going to work. So if you want to be part of that society and you want to reap the benefits, you have to submit to that society's ideals and principles. And that means submission means you are held accountable. If you're in the constrained view of the world, you submit to, you say, I'm personally held accountable for my actions, for my choices. But the unconstrained view, they don't want to be held accountable. That's one of the reasons they seek control, so that they can excuse themselves. They'll hold others accountable to the same rules that they made, but not themselves. We see it as hypocrisy. That's one indication you belong to the unconstrained view of life. You want to excuse yourself. So in a republic, for a republic to work, you have to hold yourself accountable. Well, mankind, or the bulk of mankind, is afraid of being held accountable. Why? Why are so many people afraid of accountability? Well, it's fear. That's the part I'm after right now. Fear of accountability. The unconstrained person might be afraid of accountability, but they still do what they're supposed to do, and they will still accept the punishment or the accolades for their actions. They're responsible. They're principled, which means they have a very strong worldview, a very strong ideology. They're true to it. They're real. They won't move. The unconstrained person, this is why you can't reason with them, because logic does not work with an unconstrained person. The rules of language, the rules of logic, there are no fixed rules. If human nature is not fixed, then nothing is fixed. The way your sexuality isn't fixed. What's right and wrong today is not fixed from tomorrow. What the word today means today in this conversation may not mean the same thing next hour. Yes, sir?
But isn't it human nature not to take responsibility? I mean, from the very beginning, it's like, Adam, what did you do? That woman you gave me, she gave me. Eve, what did you? That serpent, nothing's changed.
Well, I was trying not to go where he went, but yes, that's exactly why. Fear of responsibility is an indication that there is a creator and an afterlife, and that you will be held accountable for how you live in this one. All human beings have a fear of being held accountable, even sociopaths. If they didn't, they wouldn't hide their sociopathy. Ted Bundy would have just walked down the street killing people. Why didn't he do that? Well, Joe, that's not fear of accountability. He knew that somebody would catch him and put him in. See? Fear of accountability. All humans are afraid of being held accountable. It's instinctive. You can't breed it out of us, which is an indication that the unconstrained view of life is wrong. So this is the real reason people want control. They want to absolve themselves. They want to be able to control everybody else so that they're not afraid, not as fearful, and at the same time absolve themselves of their responsibility. Control means you have personal responsibility. But if they control you, control, if you're going to hold yourself personally responsible for what you do, if you acknowledge that you're under the unconstrained view of the world. I mean, constrained. My mind is racing ahead of you. Let me stop here for a second. I don't want to get to everybody confused any more than I already have. Man is afraid of a personal responsibility, so they seek control. Because if I can control everything around me, I can get rid of my own personal responsibility. I can absolve myself of it. say, well, that wasn't my, I didn't have control over that, so that wasn't my fault. Even though you may actually have control over it, you'll say you didn't, because I've got control, so I decide what I did and didn't have. It's all about, it's a fear reaction, folks. It's a fear reaction. But those who belong to the constrained view of human nature, they submit. They submit to accountability. They submit to laws and rules that are above themselves. Whether I'm in the military and I submit to the chain of command, whether I'm in a Republican government and I submit to the rule of law, or I submit to the law of my faith, or, which is supposed to be the Creator's law. I submit. I willingly submit. And in the Christian life, that's what they say, picking up your cross daily. It means I die to self. What I want doesn't matter. I have chosen a worldview ideology that says I'm a slave to this way of doing things, and I'll learn to live accordingly. The person who believes in the unconstrained view, they won't submit to that. They don't want to be held responsible, which is probably why they end up in the unconstrained view. And it's large part motivated by fear. And why does it make everybody fearful? What are they afraid of? Well, I would submit that it's ultimately they know, there's a part of them that knows that there's an afterlife and they're going to be judged for it. Now, if you submit to external law, this is what creates the notion of honor and shame within yourself, within your family, within your community, within your country. It forms a social control. And that's part of the natural law. It's part of the cohesion that allows a society to operate. But if you do not submit, if you're somebody who does not want to submit to external law, then that's what the purpose of crime and punishment is for. That's what that's there for. That the rule of the sword. The rule of the sword is for those who will not submit to authority above them. We have a comment on the board from John Quest that says fear of being held accountable or fear of no longer being a way to get away with their lawlessness. Maybe there is no difference. Well, their lawlessness, Mr. Quest, is probably because I'm in control. Nobody can tell me what to do. I'm God to myself. So where you and I see it as lawless, they do not. And that's part of the problem. If you understand higher authority and you believe in the constrained view of human nature and reality, then somebody who believes that human nature is unconstrained and reality is unconstrained and it depends on their personal perspective of the world, those of us who believe in the constrained and we submit to higher authority, we're never going to understand those folks. We can't. Well, I mean, we can understand them, but you're never going to reason with them. We're going to see them as lawless. But we can understand that from their perspective, they're not lawless because they're following their God, which is the person in their mirror. We see them as lawless because we've submitted to a higher authority. And we see that what they're doing is breaking the laws of that higher authority, whatever that authority may be. They don't see it. They don't recognize that higher authority. They think they are the higher authority. And this is why, what we like to say arguing with a liberal is like trying to pin Jello to the wall. That's because they don't submit to any higher authority other than themselves. So even if you nail them on a point that objective reality, I've nailed them logically, they're done. They'll just say, well, that doesn't apply to me. And you're like, how do you get there? They don't need any other reason other than I'm my own God. I said so. Applies to you, not me. And that's how they'll feel justified to turn around and criticize you for doing something you do, where they won't, they might be an adulterer. So if they find out that, you're married and you were looking at another woman, oh, he's an adulterer, look how awful he is. And I say, wait a minute, you're running around with 3 or 4 other different women on your wife. Oh, well, my sexuality, that's private. It's not for you to worry about. This is Bill Clinton. This is literally Bill Clinton. He criticized his political opponents whenever he had the opportunity for sexual immorality and never once acknowledged his own, because he was a god unto himself, still is. And this is the problem. Now, why would he be that? Because he's fearful. He's a coward. Incidentally, my faith You go read the revealed law in my faith, and it says cowards go to hell. What? Yes. Cowards are condemned to hell. It's moral cowards. It's knowing what the right thing to do is and not doing it because you're more afraid of the opinion of man, capital M, the opinion of human beings, than you are of the creator who set that law. You know, what's right and wrong. So what you're actually doing is you're choosing man, the created, over the creator. And you're going to defer to the opinion of the created rather than the creator. It's fear. So you're more afraid of man's opinion than the creator's judgment. It's all about fear. Control is all about fear. The quest, the desire, the thirst and hunger for control is all about fear. Say, no, Joe, I just want power. Power is about fear. You want power so that you can wield it over people so that you can alleviate your fears. You have hidden inward fears. Well, my faith says that this is why the Creator gave us human government. It's the sword to force some sort of law and order onto the lawless, the ones who refuse to acknowledge even an unjust government. I'll put the sword down there. I will enforce some sort of law and order on you, even if it's tyranny. And if you are somebody who will submit and you recognize higher authority, then you know that eventually there's a reward or punishment for your actions. There's no possibility for morality without this fear of eternal judgment later in an afterlife. Because if all you're afraid of is the government, if that's the only thing that establishes morality, then just elect a new government and you have an entirely new morality. Which is exactly what's happened with racism. The slavery at that time was legal. So if you're looking at reality being a subjective, unconstrained thing, we may not like racism or slavery or whatever today, but back then it was legal and it was moral. So if you're going to judge the past by today's standards, you're being immoral, even by today's standards. It forms catch-22s. And this is how we get into so many logical inconsistencies and contradictions. It's because you're dealing with unconstrained people. They have no thought of consistency, because that would be a principle. Consistency, the quest for consistency of thinking and action, says that there is an objective reality in the world. So you're trying to be consistent to conform to objective reality. You've got a constrained idea or ideology. And your principles, your guardrails have been set up to keep you operating according to that constrained ideology. Well, the unconstrained doesn't have those. So in order for a system, any system to work, to function, the people within it, society within it, because any group of people is a society. So for the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the military, the police department, the government, the post office, for any society, group of people, even any corporation to function, they all have to be willing, they have to submit to the system itself, to how that system works. System of laws or principles or rules. If you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, we all have to submit to the rules of the game. You want to play chess, you got to submit to the rules of the game. So and it has to be universal. If we don't all accept the rules of chess, we say, well, you're cheating. Well, that's the problem, is that unconstrained people do not submit. They don't want to. They want you to submit, because then they have control. And the feeling of control lets them have less fear. It alleviates their fear and their anxieties. But if you do not submit to the system, whatever that system may be, then you have chaos. At varying degrees of chaos. But if we're not going to accept the rules of the system, if we're not all going to agree to the rules of the system, we end up with chaos. And chaos is uncertainty. And that's another source of fear. Uncertainty. Am I going to have enough money to pay my bills? Am I going to have enough money to eat? Am I going to have enough food to eat? Am I going to have enough clothing to wear? Am I going to have a house over my head? All this uncertainty causes fear. So for a lot of people, money gives them power over their lives, power over their fear and their anxieties. So in my faith, if you read the book of my faith, you'll keep hearing, do not fear, have no fear. Don't worry about these things. I got it covered. That if you let the fear go, if you can find a way to let the fear go, it becomes easier to submit and to trust. But for those who can't do that, who remain fearful, who are too cowardly, and I do mean cowardly, to do what's right, even by their own worldview, then the only answer for them most of the time is more control. And the problem with that is they never realize that starts with self-control. They want to control everything but themselves because they don't even, their fear of accountability is so great, they don't even want to be accountable to themselves. It's fear. It's fear. So why do we need cohesion in society? Well, it gives you a common morality. And your common morality, it has to be commonly accepted because that's your ideal. Your ideal is formed by your common morality, your worldview. And that's going to give you your principles, your commonly accepted laws and system of jurisprudence. And you're going to tell others, you don't have to be a part of our society. You can be an outlaw outside the law. But if you're going to interact with the members of our society, we're going to treat you accordingly. So people who don't want to submit to that say, okay, I'm going to use specific real world examples. Marriage is between a man and a woman. Well, I want to get married. Yeah, but you two are two men. You can get married to a woman. Well, I that's not the same thing. I want equal rights. You have equal rights. You have the equal right to marry a woman within our society. Well, these are outlaws outside their society wanting to impose their will on the whole of society. And they do so with the moral claim that I just want equal rights. You have equal rights. You can marry, you're a man, you can marry a woman. What you want is special rights. And why can't we recognize it for what it is? Well, those of us who submit to natural law and right reasoning and to revealed morality know that this is wrong. But let's take the revealed morality out of it. And let's just look at the letter of the human law. I still know that you have, even if you're homosexual, you have an equal right to marry a woman. That's the law. That's what's recognized in the civil law. You have an equal right. What you're pleading for is special right. And the minute I give you a special right, I subvert republicanism. I subvert the rule of law based on natural law and equality of moral claim. So if you want that, you don't go through the courts. You don't go through some other system of hooks and crooks. You try to convince the people that the law should be changed such that marriage is between two individuals. We never did that. We have not done that. It was forced on us outside of the legal system, which means it's lawlessness. In our whole society, this has been, say, well, Joe, they're making the laws now. Are they? Are they? Though a lot of those laws are being overturned, folks. You don't have a universal system. You still have an attempt to use the courts to force it on us, not through legal means, but through court rulings. And we can look at our world today in this country and see what that does. You got the Supreme Court saying you can't do this, and we got other judges saying, well, I'm going to do it anyhow, and they're still in their office. They're still in power. We'll deal with all of that in specifics in the next hour. I'm going to finish this part of the conversation because it's setting us up for the next hour. So all of this, if you are conforming to a Republican system, it does yield a degree of certainty. It does. And that reduces fear. There is some security in that if you'll submit, but you have to be willing to submit to this. But then you're going to have people who are going to be like, well, I don't have the ability to make as much money as that guy does. So I need a different system because your system is white privilege and it just keeps me down because, whatever reason, I've got an excuse. It's fear. Well, no, Joe, that's greed. No, it's fear. I've even seen an ad in the movies. We go to the movies a lot, my wife and I. They call it FOMO, fear of missing out. It's still fear. It's fear of not being equal with the Joneses. It is a form of envy, or envy is a form of fear. One way or the other. Fear that you're not as good. Fear this, fear that. It's fear. It's fear. So if you want control, if you want to change the society so that you can change the rules, change the laws, change the way you make living, if you want to just change the order that is, rather than submitting and learning how to live and exist within that order, first thing you want to do is create chaos. More fear. You want everybody else to be afraid. That's the ideology behind terrorism. Make everybody so scared that they give in to you. That's what the chaos is about. Then you can offer safety, air quotes, in return for submission. See, you've always been, if you're unconstrained, you've always been about submission to you. You want the world to submit to you because you're a cult of personality. You're a cult of one. You're your own God. Ultimately, this is where the love of government comes from within man. Love of government over the love of God, over the love of the Creator. Trust of government rather than the trust of the Creator. Even trust of self. Libertarians, government unto themselves. I'm a sovereign citizen. You're claiming to be a government of one. That's what you're saying. That's what that means. The form and function, that's what that means. That you are your own king, your own ruler, your own God. That's the appeal of socialism. They appeal to envy. And it's greed. It's all connected to FOMO, fear of missing out, or fear of not being equal, or in some cases, the poor, fear of not having the money to have a food and clothing and a house. But in our society, even the poor are rich by the standards of the rest of the world. They still have that greed. They still have that wanting more. And greed and fear are connected to each other. It's all about, even if all you want is more money, say, I need more money. The rich shouldn't be rich. Why? What it really is I want to be as comfortable as them because they don't have any worries. No fears. You want to bet? Once they have all that money, they're afraid of losing it. So when the left says we're destroying democracy, what they mean is that you're destroying the control that they've seized. What they mean is you're destroying their ability to control things and to alleviate their fear. What they mean is you're making them fearful again, which is why they're all running around scared. And they sound like frightened little children. Oh my God, Trump's going to do this, do that. That's what Trump derangement syndrome is. Fear. It's got nothing to do about destroying democracy. They're losing their control. And it's also why the GOP never does anything to fight them. The GOP doesn't want to give up its control. Why? Fear. Because then they might not get reelected themselves. They may not be able to keep their power, their money. They may not be able to control the circumstances that alleviate their fear and anxiety. They've joined with the control mongers. They're part of the Uniparty. It's the right wing of the Uniparty. Now, what we're going to discuss a little bit in the next hour is, I said this a long time ago, my worry with Trump is that he's not ideological. His only goal in life is to win, make the deal. So the big, beautiful bill, which is still big, but it isn't beautiful. They've gutted it. It's nothing. But if he gets it passed, he's going to crow and claim a victory. Well, it's a Pyrrhic victory. And then everybody's going to get down on Elon Musk, who's criticizing it. Musk is right. Musk is 100% right. Rand Paul is 100% right. But we're going to cheer the passing of the big, beautiful bill because we're not ideological. We're cult of personality. Cheeto Jesus saves. Well, if you're cult of personality, you're unconstrained. Part of the Uniparty. Well, no, Joe, I'm a Republican. Those are rhinos. No. There's no such thing as a rhino. That's another boogeyman. They're Republicans. All Republicans. What the question for you is, why don't you leave that party? Oh, well, if I leave, then the Democrats win. Fear! Yay! There you go. Ding, ding, ding. Fear. So you stay on the reservation and keep voting R, and the R keeps doing what the D wants, and you complain that the R's are rhino. Oh, you just as slaved as the Democrats. You just can't see it. You're as blind as you say they are. And if I bring it up, everybody wants to draw and quarter me. You always kill the prophet for speaking truth, don't you? So the question is Trump just not ideological? And what he's doing and allowing to happen? Is it because he does not understand the ideology of this country? Or is he part of the show? Actions above words, folks. Is this all just part of the show? We'll look at that next hour. Going to go to a break now. When we come back, I'm still going to be using this hour to explain and show you what I'm seeing in the headlines in the next hour. I've given you the class. Now let's do practical application homework. See you in 6 minutes. All right, welcome back. I wonder how many people are left because they're mad at me now. Yes, I know. I question MAGA. I question President Trump. I question a lot of things, folks. That's just the nature of who and what I am. But I'm going to assume that you were with us in the last hour. Given what I just explained there about constrained and unconstrained, the need for unity within a society and everything, I want to start sharing a few articles that I've collected over the last few weeks. And I want to just continue with the discussion we've been having. We're not going to read these articles per se, but this one is the Heritage Foundation. It was published on May 9th. It's by Mike Gonzalez, and it's Gonzalez. Oh, wow. Check out the name. Diversity is not our strength. And we're told today diversity is our strength. It is not. I agree with him. We just mentioned that. Diversity is balkanization. That's chaos. It's the fracturing of a society. He's got 3 key takeaways. A nation of groups is thus an oxymoron. It's not a nation. In the best of times, it will be a festering federation. In the worst, it will dissolve into warring tribes. This country is a federation. In the best of times, you have a collection of 50 states that are working against each other, or that's how it should be. That's not what's happened. They collectivized us. But the second takeaway from his article, the idea, it seems, is that members of the different groups can share a belief in equality and are then exempt from casting off their foreign skin. Let me ask you a question. How do you share a belief in the same belief, same equality between a Muslim and a Christian? Unfortunately, you got some Christians who think you can do this. They don't understand Islam, I guess. But how does Islam coexist with the Constitution of the United States? Those are they're contradicting ideologies. They're, by their nature, by their form and function, they are at war with each other. Chrislam. Yeah, that's the Pope's thing right there. That's actually a Muslim idea, not Christian. Point number 3. The way to ensure that America remains strong is to return to the idea of assimilation and limit entry to those who want to join the existing nation, not change it, not turn it into something else. Our nation has become balkanized. In part, the reason that they want all these other folks into this nation is to create a different voting bloc who are dependent on government. That's the political reason. There's also another reason. The ideological reason is it creates balkanization, which destroys the existing system. That's what they want to do. They want to destroy the system so they can rebuild it. They want control because ultimately they're fearful. It's fear. That's what the problem is. So now let's take this one out. It says everyone needs to stop freaking out about the Senate parliamentarian. What's this? Whoops. You'd be thinking, well, what's this got to do with balkanization, Joe? Why'd you put this one in here? You know, the Democrat who took out the pieces of the big beautiful bill that basically gutted it. It's the reason that Elon Musk is complaining about Trump right now and in the bill, and everybody's upset with Elon. They think he's a traitor. No. Elon and Doge did a job. He expected something to be done about that job. And the Republicans have put all that money right back in. All that money that is being wasted on graft has been returned quietly. And Trump is doing victory laps, claiming they've done something. And the Republicans are thumping their chest, claiming they've done something. And in this case, the Republican leader of the Senate's just like, well, we can't do anything right now. That Democratic parliamentarian did it. Why doesn't the Republican Party ever do something like this? Why don't their parliamentarians ever whip out huge sections of Democratic bills? Or why don't they insert something? Why don't they ever insert term limits or insert the end of Obamacare? Why don't they ever do anything like that? I'll tell you why.
I figured it out. They're magicians.
Okay. Yeah. What'd you want to say?
Well, they're magicians.
Okay, I'm listening.
No, they put up all the smoke and mirrors, and they make you think that something's happened, but it's all an illusion.
Which would mean that they're no different than the Democrats.
Right, exactly.
The whole party.
Yeah.
Well, what's it mean if you keep voting for that party?
I don't have nice words to say, so I don't know what to say.
And the reason you can't start a true second party is because, well, that'll never work. Well, why won't it work? Because the party in existence tells you it won't work and you believe them. Because while you're trying to build the true second party, the other party will win. Well, what's it matter? Whether you vote D or R, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So why don't you start it? Because of fear. So why don't the Republicans ever try to actually do what they promised to do? Fear. Ultimately, it's fear. And why don't we ever do anything about it to punish them? Ultimately, it's fear. Moral fear. Moral cowardice. The exact same type that,
though, because the Republicans have their hands in the same coffers as the Democrats do. So if they actually implemented these things, it would affect their livelihood, their power, their influence, and everything else.
Which is why the blue bloods support the Republican Party. What Rush called the blue bloods.
Right.
That's actually the Republican Party. That's the real, that's the right wing of the progressive bird. That's Teddy Roosevelt's folks. Yes. But those people who still think of themselves as aligned with the founding fathers, why do they still keep voting for the Republican Party? Fear. Fear that they'll lose. And what is it that they're going to lose? Well, they're going to lose party control. So why do you need party control so much? So they'll do what we tell them to do. When is the last time they did that? They never do because we don't have enough Republicans. Well, welcome to the loop. See? Proved it.
Yeah.
Just proved it.
Yeah. I used to think that way, when I voted.
So did I, until I realized that that's exactly what Rush was there to do.
But if everyone would change their mindset and do like I do, and I vote for the people that nobody else will vote for, if those people ever got into office, they might actually affect a change.
What would have happened if Ross Perot, if everybody that, all right, but what would have happened if everybody that agreed with Ross Perot had switched over and voted for him? Everybody. I agreed with him, but I voted R back then because of Rush.
Yeah.
Rush had control over me.
My dad was right. My dad supported him and I didn't. I was
let me ask
young
a question.
And stupid.
Let's say you had started another party back then and they never ever were able to make a majority. Let's say you had 35% Republican and 35% Democrat and 30% of that other party. Well, we never have enough to do anything, don't you? You've just created a parliamentarian system.
Yeah.
Both the Republicans and the Democrats are going to need your votes to make a majority if they want to stay politically pure. Yeah. If they don't, they end up working together, in which case you have forced them to reveal themselves for what they are. In which case more people would have come out of there and joined your party, and you'd now be the majority.
Yeah.
Fear. You don't do what you believe is right, or you actually don't believe what you say you believe. And now we're back to what I started the show off with. What's your ideology? Do you really have one?
Yeah.
So why is all this important? Well, my next story, calculated chaos. Let me put this up here for you. Calculated chaos. The legacy of MK Ultra, which has been married to Mockingbird. This is from Blaze Staff, June 15th, 2025. It's an interview with an author. And what he's going to tell you, I'm not going to read it, but what he's going to tell you is they have learned how to control individuals and groups. Mass manipulation. And they do this primarily today through TV, video screens, which explains this. This is from Not the Bee. It's by Harris Rigby on May 12, 2025. This high school teacher says she's quitting because the next generation of kids is just too far gone. And what's her primary problem? Their screens, their technology. We don't see. Did you know that they've actually put trigger warnings on the book, Orwell's book, 1984, in the school system now? Because his book might trigger the snowflakes. Oh my gosh. The TV was the means of controlling the way the people thought in that book. Drugs were the way they controlled you in Brave New World. We have both in this country now. Big pharma, big media. Okay, and they're both married with government. We have a fascist system in this country. You're not living under the Constitution. You're not living anything close to the system that the founding fathers had envisioned. You're not. It doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't for a while. And they're moving more and more to where they're forcing you to use this thing for everything. Say, well, I'm not going to ever vote for nationwide ID. You don't have to. They're getting around that. It's this. I can't even log into my programs anymore or my accounts anywhere unless I have my phone with me to give them their two-factor authentication. Say, well, Joe, you could always get an email. No, you can't always. Some of them only give you my bank. If I don't have my phone with me, a lot of my banking systems, I can't get into them. Not online, not without that phone. It's becoming a form of ID. That phone programs us. Literally. It takes us into an alternative reality. And it puts us on the slippery slope, and it erodes whatever principles we may have had in place. It starts to erode them. It chips at them. It's MK Ultra. It's MK Ultra. They're programming us. And we can see the effects here. This is another story by The Blaze. St. Luigi, America's moral compass couldn't be more broken. Devin Almonte, May 11th, 2025. This is about this, I'm not even going to use his name. This is about the terrorist who shot that United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. We now have a bill sponsored in his name. That's, if a healthcare agency denies service, we're going to punish them. And it's in his name. They've heroized this. They've made a hero out of this guy, out of a murderer, a terrorist. Well, where did he get the idea that it's all the healthcare CEO's fault, that healthcare is a mess? The media. Is the media ever going to tell this man that the reason healthcare is a mess is because it gave the government realized it could make money off the healthcare industry, and that the healthcare industry realized it could make more money off of the paying the politicians, and that they got in bed together and formed, fascism. Well, wait, no, Trump's the fascist. No, your healthcare Democratic Republican Party, Uniparty, those are the fascists. And they've created a system. You didn't have this problem back when I was growing up. I remember still having a doctor come to the house when I was a kid. And my mom was able to pay him the full bill out of her pocket. It was expensive, but she had the money. It wasn't so expensive she couldn't pay it herself. But between this, and don't forget the lawyers. The lawyers are in this mess too. We're using government to make money. Our industries are doing this. Fascism. You protect me with the laws, I'll give you kickbacks. You force this on them, it's a death spiral. But we blame it on the CEOs. So this guy goes out, and that's one of the things that MK Ultra focused on. How do I influence youth? It's almost always youth. It's almost always youth from broken families. You should look up that article and read it someday. Read about MK Ultra, how they did this. So if I want more programmable droids, I need more broken families, which means I need more healthcare. I mean, not healthcare, welfare, where I tell the families, if you've got a man in the house, you can't get free money. So that the man doesn't. Now I got a whole bunch of baby daddies. They've been absolved of being men. Now they're just breeders running around, hooking up, making, more babies so that mama can draw more money. And I've got more broken. Well, Joe, you're being racist. Oh, no. When I was going to school, this was the majority of people in this loop were white. They were Appalachian. They were from the mountain states. The majority of them were white, more than black. So no, I'm not. This isn't racial. This is cultural. It's cultural, and it feeds on fear, and it creates the raw material they need to make their drones. I've told you this before. Your school shootings. If you did the work you'd find the links to MK Ultra. How do they get those drones programmed? Right here. Social media. That's why certain things Facebook will prevent, certain things they won't. If they've got the control, they'll allow it. Now, Blaze Media, also from the Opinion and Analysis. This is Paul Gottfried, May 27th. It says the Democratic Party is now evolving. It's not dying, it's evolving. It says while Republicans fixate on polls, Democrats harvest ballots, fundraise with billionaires, and push their base to fight like their paycheck depends on it. Well, that's because it does. What the heck happened here? The screen's doing weird things, man. It wasn't me, Charlie.
Yeah, I was trying to fix it, but it wasn't in studio. That's what happened. Yeah, somehow it dropped out of studio.
We got that fixed.
It's fixed.
All right. So the Democratic Party is not evolving. I mean, it is. It is. But what it is what it's really doing is dropping its masks. On the surface, it can't win an election. Not if the election is fair. So it's learning better how to steal elections. But so are the Republicans. And the Republicans are doing nothing about this. Nothing. Fixating on polls and everything. So why did I put this up here? This goes directly to what I was talking to you about with Trump. If he were ideologically based, he would use the opportunities that are before him right now to utterly and totally destroy the progressive movement in this country. He has the political clout with MAGA. He has the political clout right now with immigrants because they're starting to really support what he's doing with illegal immigrants. He has the political clout. But if he is what he presents himself to be, then his lack of political ideology, lack of at least understanding of the Constitution and the Declaration, and adherence to that ideal, he's got we're never going to have an opportunity like this again. It's right in his lap with what he can crush the Supreme Court and the judicial system right now. He could crush the media. He could crush the unions. He could crush the Uniparty system. He could crush all of it right now legally. He can do every bit of it legally. They're all combined to fund these seditious riots. This is an attack. You are in a civil war. You are in a hot civil war. It's being fought asymmetrically. He's got everything he needs to declare martial law and go after this. And that's legal because the Constitution allows him to do this in cases of sedition. And we have sedition. We have sedition from within our own government. That's the deep state. We've got it. He's not doing that. He's focusing on big, beautiful bills. And I got this win and we're winning in the courts. You didn't win in the courts, Trump. You are still deferring presidential power to the Supreme Court. They are still president. Just because they gave you a ruling you like doesn't mean you won. You still had to get their permission to be president, which means you lost. But you're running around crowing like you won. And all the MAGA is crowing about how he won this big case in the court. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He lost bigger than what he can see because he's not ideological at best. But given how MK Ultra works and how well it's been perfected and how intricately it's tied to Mockingbird and social media, I am not willing to say that Trump is not part of the program. He might be part of the plan. Now, something else I want to show you. Whoops, keep bumping that out of there. There's where I want it. Political idolatry is running wild on the left. Look, all at 3 examples from just this week. I don't care about the examples. This is from Not the Bee. It's Peter Heck, May 28th, 2025. What I'm focusing on is political idolatry. Government as the savior. Why does this guy say it's running wild on the left? MAGA's worshiping Cheeto Jesus. They are in a cult relationship with Trump. Yes, cult. Remember how I defined that earlier last hour. If it's all based on one person, it's a cult. Well, Joseph, Christianity is a cult of Jesus. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No. That Bible was written by how many different authors? Over how many centuries? That's not built on one person. And by the way, Jesus is the creator in that book. Kind of hard to be in a cult of the creator. That defies that definition because he's not a person. But anyhow, the right worships government just as much as the left. The right has idolatrized government just as much as the left. They're fighting for control of government, not hearts and minds. They're not evangelizing their ideology. They're trying to win legal battles with the court, which gives the court more and more power when they're supposed to have less and less. They don't codify the things that Trump is doing by a presidential decree, which means that the next president will just undo it. And the Republicans know this. And that way, when the next president undoes it, look, unless you give me more R's in Congress, we can't do anything. I'm going to be like, you had a chance just the last time. And then that time before that under Bush, and you never, ever, 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 ever do it. That's because we don't have enough R's. I could give you 100% R's and you still wouldn't do it. That's because you didn't give us enough R's. They know that I don't matter. They know that the majority of MAGA is going to keep voting R. Because of fear. Fear. You're afraid the other side's going to win if you do the right thing. Well, the reason that teacher's quitting, she says it's technology. Well, it is. But why are those students allowed to play on that technology? Because mom and dad no longer have the fear necessary to be good parents. Mom and dad won't tell little Johnny and little Susie, no cell phone for you. Mom and dad no longer adhere to the principles that would have kept those kids off those phones. Fear. What's mom and dad afraid of? Having to actually be parents rather than let the phones babysit their kids. I'm guilty of this. I used the TV to babysit my oldest son when I was younger. I did it. I didn't realize it at the time. I was just tired, busy. And maybe it was laziness, but ultimately it was fear. Fear of having to be accountable to do what I knew I was supposed to do. What else do I have for you here? Okay. Far left Democrat Delaware governor officially signs bill legalizing state-sponsored euthanasia. Slippery slope. That's murder. State-sponsored euthanasia. Folks, Germany, that's what Germany called the Holocaust. It was just state-sponsored. Those Jews and those gypsies and those undesirables, their life wasn't worth living. They, that's the unconstrained view. How can we improve humanity unless we get rid of the undesirables? But we call it the Holocaust, and we declared it a human, that was a crime against humanity. How's this any different? It's the same form and function. You're deciding that these people don't have a life worth living. Well, no, Joe, this is assisted suicide. No such thing. When you have to put an adjective in front of suicide, it's no longer suicide. This is a slippery slope. We no longer have the moral high ground. And this is what I was talking to you here. Elon Musk goes off on President Trump's big, beautiful bill after Senate makes a significant change to the legislation. It's not big and beautiful. Elon Musk is being principled, and he's being attacked by MAGA as a traitor. Constitutional crisis. Researcher suggests Biden's AutoPen signatures may not be his. They're likely Jill's, meaning all AutoPen signed documents are forgeries. I got a little newsflash for you, folks. Legally, certain things cannot be AutoPenned. A pardon cannot be AutoPenned. The law says the president has to sign it, not AutoPen it. AutoPen is for like photographs and bulk letters and things like that. A bill cannot be AutoPenned. It has to be signed by the president. It says so in the Constitution, not AutoPenned. Well, they wrote a law that said the law's illegal. Law's illegal. Because you have to amend the Constitution that says, well, the president can sign it or some proxy, therefore, of the president's signature. So all of this is illegal anyway. Second principle of law, established principle of law. Even if Biden had signed it, they would have to prove that he was cognitively aware of and all the details, understood them, and agreed with them in order to sign that document. He wasn't. He hasn't been since he was not legally cognitively able to be president. He was never legally, he wasn't accountable. So why is the Republican Party not doing something with this? Why hasn't anybody gone to jail over Epstein, over January 6th, over the impeachment, over Russiagate? Why doesn't anybody ever go to jail for any of this? Benghazi, Obama committed treason. He gave military aid to Al-Qaeda when he bombed Gaddafi. The Constitution calls that treason. Where are the Republicans filing articles of impeachment? Even if you think it's just for show, where are they? The party will not attack itself.
Because they're all accessories to the crime.
Bingo! Which means they're afraid of being held accountable. So they won't hold each other accountable. And in the process, lawlessness rules. Which is exactly how we are. And here we are. Yes, ma'am?
Does impeachment really do anything nowadays?
No, but at least it shows you got somebody in there that, if it was done properly and not as a stunt like the Democrats did just a little while ago, if it was actually filed honestly with documents to support it, it shows that you at least have somebody left in the Congress that are at least is trying to appear lawful.
True.
And if they actually enforced the law, then it would be effective. But there's no one willing to do that.
Let's say I had filed articles of impeachment against Obama for treason back with Libya. Everybody who voted no against that could technically be removed from the House for violation of their oath, because he did say all the evidence you need is right there. It's still in public realm. He signed the order for the military, and the United States military intelligence on the floor of the House told him in hearings that there were ISIS and Al-Qaeda was inside those rebels. Those rebels were being funded and orchestrated by and with and were part of the rebel community against Gaddafi was ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So when he gave the rebels military aid, he committed treason. That's a slam dunk case. There's no gray area there. Treason, black and white, straight up. Anybody who votes no, innocent, you're violating your oath of office to uphold the laws of the Constitution. You could remove them. You could hold a vote of the House to remove those members. They don't get to vote. The ones being accused don't get to vote. They don't get to vote that they're innocent. It's those members who voted guilty. So you could have kicked every one of them out. You didn't know that you could kick people out of the House and Senate? Yes, you can.
Yeah. They did it just recently.
Yeah. To a Republican.
Well, actually, wasn't there a Democrat too that I don't know?
It was a New York Republican that got kicked out for trying to uphold principle. For trying to uphold principle. He pissed off MAGA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of this will get you things like, let me see here. This. Whoops. There we go. This is from TFPP Wire. New data shows the shocking demographic transformation of Europe. And I'm not going to go over this. I'm just going to tell you that this is the culmination of a book that warned Europe what was going to happen. Europe, globalization, and the coming universal caliphate by Bat Yor. That woman has been warning Europe that your allowing of these immigrants, these invaders from the Middle East, these Muslims, is going to ruin Europe. It's going to destroy Europe. They never listened to her. Now what do they have? Well, now they have Austrian school children forced to learn Arabic so that they can communicate with Muslim classmates. Well, I have to learn Spanish to watch my TV or to read my road signs now in my own country. The United States of America, the language is English. Why does the government do anything in Spanish? I don't give a rat's rip how many Spanish speakers you have here. Learn English or take you home. Well, Joe, no, I'm not. I am being pro-society, pro-law, pro-cohesion, pro-organization. I'm being pro-order. But I've been told that that's racism. How am I racist against a language? Well, because all those people speaking that language are brown. No, they're not. I know several Spanish speakers who are as white as I am, because Spaniards are Caucasians. You're talking about Mexican Indians, the natives.
Just call a Puerto Rican a Mexican once and see what happens.
Oh boy, let me out from between the two of you. So this is all, and that's all MK Ultra. That's all part of the balkanization of our country. Now, Britain's gone, folks. Britain imposes Islamic blasphemy law. A man is convicted for burning the Quran. They can burn the Bible, but he can't burn the Quran. I can burn the American flag, but I can't burn an LGBTQ flag in this country. If you think this isn't coming here, you are dreaming. It's already here. The American left and the jihadists, an unholy alliance. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah. David Horowitz, 2004, Unholy Alliance, Radical Islam in the American Left. Folks, Islam has already told us queers for Palestine. Now,
that one's so
do these
funny.
people understand what happens as soon as Islam takes over? Oh, you've been so good to us. You'll help us take over a country. Come on, let's go up to the top of the roof and we'll celebrate with fireworks. Woo! Queer goes over the roof. That's exactly what happens to them. And when the Democrats are going to think, well, they're just a bunch of backwoods, goat herders. As soon as we take over the country, we'll get rid of the Muslims. It's going to be off with your head, Democrat. You're not paying attention to the march of history, let alone prophecy. How about this? Al-Qaeda leaders call on Muslims in America to launch terror attacks and assassinate President Trump and his cabinet. June 10th, 2025 by Jim Hoft. This is on the Gateway Pundit. So that's June 10th. June 29th, a fatwa calling for Muslims to assassinate President Trump issued by the Iranian Ayatollah. Fatwa. Y'all know what that is? That's a holy order. It's like an order from the Pope. No big deal. It's just Islam, right? They're not a problem. They're not a threat. They've already told us that they're going to fly the Islamic flag over the capital of the United States, that they're here to turn the United States into a Muslim country. And you've got a large, Ilhan Omar, we got to get rid of her. How did she get elected? Because Obama brought all these Somalis over, put them in her district, in her part of the country, up there in Minnesota and parts of Wisconsin and Michigan, and made himself a little Somalistan. And that's how this woman married to her brother. Yes, she is married to her brother, which means she's illegal. She shouldn't be here legally. She lied to get into the United States. That's grounds for her being deported. Why haven't we done that? Not going to do that. She shouldn't be senator right now. I mean, congressman or whatever, but that's how she got into office. You can't go to Dearborn. It's called Dearbornistan for a reason. You can't go to Dearborn, Michigan, unless you're a Muslim. At least major parts of it. Well, that's just up in that area, Joe. You think so? They were importing large numbers of these people into red states to take over the reddest areas. This is how Islam works. Where we are not having enough babies in this country to repopulate ourselves, to sustain our population, we're in decline. Islam won't have that problem. 3 generations from now, maybe 4, this country will be a part of the Islamic Caliphate. Watch what happens then. We're not honoring the threat. Our supposed ideals and principles have been weaponized. They're being used against us to keep us from being able to do anything to defend ourselves against this progressive Islamic attack on this country. The problem is if you are using our laws properly, they will defend us. You have free speech, but you can't yell fire. And burning a flag is not speech. And forcing a minority idea on school children is not, it's not legal in this country. Forcing any political ideology on the children is not legal in this country. I can, and should be using the child endangerment and child abuse laws to fight that stuff in the school system. But because of the unions, I can't do that. And because of the destruction of our political system. And how did all that happen in a country where we're supposed to be voting for our representatives? We voted out of fear, and now we get the government we deserve. Yes, sir.
This is the road to Concord, right?
Yes.
So I want to see if I got something right. We always talk about freedom of speech.
Yep.
And everybody thinks that means you can say anything you want.
Nope.
That's not what the founders put that in there for. Freedom of speech was to redress your government without repercussions. Was that not what freedom of speech really was about?
Yeah, it was political speech.
Okay, just checking.
But people would tell you that I have the right to riot because that's just a form of speech. That's not speech.
No, that's not speech.
Say, well, I have I have the right to assemble. Well, it's not peaceful. And by the way, if I have to have a permit from the government to peacefully assemble, that's unconstitutional. Yeah, there's nothing in there about you have the right to petition the government for the right to assemble.
Right.
We have so many unconstitutional laws in this country because
people think that you can just assemble anywhere you want. Now I've done some protesting, and we were protesting at this one location, and the cops came because the people at the location that we were protesting in front of called them because they were concerned that we were going to be on their private property protesting. We were actually on the public sidewalk. And so we were within our rights, and the deputy came over and he said, well, we had reports that you guys were off the sidewalk and on their property. I'm like, no, we were not. We were just, okay. As long as you stay on the sidewalk, you're fine, but people think that you can just do whatever you want and, like BLM and all this and damaging businesses. And that's not
only those people who
protesting. That's rioting.
Unconstrained worldview think you can do that.
Right. So anyway,
folks,
just making sure we were on the right show here. Okay, good.
Oh yeah. Well, Charlie, the road to Concord, the British were coming for their weapons. So they appealed to the king. Please, please, please don't take our weapons. No. They assembled on Lexington Green. And the British came to Lexington Green, and somebody somewhere fired a round, shot heard around the world. And they ran then, because then it became real and they might actually have to die in order to fight for their... Nope, they held their ground. In fact, their fellow countrymen come running from far and wide, and the British had to fight a running battle all the way back to town, in which case they got their butts thoroughly whooped. We're no longer those people. Say, well, Martin Luther King, civil rights. Yes, I'm not going to take anything away from him. Why are the whites never championed in that movement? It's only Martin Luther King and the blacks who fought for civil rights. Why are the whites that marched with him, who were clubbed with him, hit with the hoses with him, attacked by the dogs with him? And if it hadn't been for the whites, the laws would have never been passed.
And his protests were, at least for the most part, peaceful until the police got involved and they were on the wrong side of that.
The liberal police departments.
Yes.
They were controlled by Democrats at that time.
Oh, yeah.
LBJ was president, too.
Part of that story, too. Yeah.
I don't know if this show helps you in any way, shape, or form. I don't. I'm not giving you answers. It's not my job. I'm just asking you to think. I don't want you to think my way. I just want you to learn how to think. There is a proper way to think. You have to decide yourself, is truth dependent on me, or does truth exist outside of me? If it depends on you, this isn't the program for you. Time to go. Unless, of course, you're trying to change, in which case we can help you with that. But you got to listen. You got to work. But if you understand that truth exists outside of yourself, Now you got to learn how to think properly. It's called right reasoning. There are rules that govern it. I've told you before, logic's neutral. I can use logic to argue any point of any case. The way you use logic is you need a moral compass. So where do you find that truth that exists outside of yourself? Where's it come from? Once you've found that, then you learn how to reason. You use the rules of logic within the confines of that source of truth, capital T truth. That's right reasoning. As long as you're thinking for yourself, I don't care what conclusions you do. I don't care what the answer to your equation is. In this classroom, the answer isn't always what we're after. It's how you do your work. If you can tell me how you got to your conclusions, if you can defend and support your positions, that's your work, defending your positions. Then, once you learn how to do that, if there are mistakes in your work, we can show you where you made them. And if you are actually true to capital T truth, objective truth, and that's what you're pursuing, you'll go back and relook at your work and you go, oh, yeah, I did make that mistake. Okay, let me fix that. Because a lot of times when you fix your work in reasoning, it doesn't work this way in math. Well, not always. Sometimes it does. When you fix your work, the answer comes out correct. So I'm more worried about how you do the problem, how you work the problem, than I am the answer, because I know that once, if you believe in the unconstrained view of the world and you understand that objective reality does exist, then no matter how you work your problem, what conclusion you draw from it, if you're doing your work correctly, you're going to end up in the ball field. My illustration of truth is the pitcher's mound. That's ultimate truth. We will all, if you're doing your homework, if you're doing the problem, if you're working it correctly, if you're right reasoning, we'll all end up in the bleachers of that ball field somewhere. We'll all end up close to the truth. Now, the better you do your right reasoning, the closer you're going to get to behind the catcher. One of the best places to watch the game. So when you do right reasoning dang near perfectly, first row, right behind the umpire. Maybe just second row, so you're just above his shoulder so you can see better than he does. I mean, that's as close as you're going to get in this illustration. Because we can't get on the field. That belongs to the creator of truth. The field is his. But when you're right reasoning, you'll get inside the ballpark. That's what I mean by many paths to one destination, one truth. There's only one capital T truth, and we can all reason our way to it. We all might get there different ways. But there's also one path to many wrongs, many falsehoods, many lies, many false conclusions. That one path is faulty reasoning. Faulty reasoning will get you to a whole bunch of mistakes. Right reasoning will get you to one answer. That's what I mean. That's why I use that metaphor, if you will, or illustration. Charlie, you got anything else? I've talked myself out for the day.
Well, I was just going to say that, and we've said this many times, and I've actually seen you do this, is we don't necessarily always have the right answers. And a lot of times we've had classmates that have come to us and said, no, you're wrong. It should be this way, and this is why. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. So then we change our positions. And you've got to be willing to do that. Because if you're correct in that there is an absolute truth that does not move, you have to move when you find out that, oh, the truth isn't here, it's over here. And you've got to move to it. You can't move it to you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You've also seen me work through problems. People bring me a question. You say, what do I do with this? And you can't get that answer that quick. Yes, I can. Yeah. Because my ideology has been worked out. My principles are in place. All I have to do is take the specifics you gave me, apply right reasoning, find out where they land, and there's my answer. It's already been chosen for me. I don't have to decide how I feel about it. That's already been worked out. I just got to crunch the numbers.
Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing is how you feel about it. Oh boy, we could we could go down that rabbit trail, because that's another thing. Oh, it doesn't make me feel good when you say this. Well, you know what? Suck it up, Buttercup.
Fear
Doesn't
of
matter how you
anxiety.
feel. If it's true, it's
It makes
true. If it's not, it's not. You know.
notice in the first hour, fear and anxiety, because anxiety is a form of fear.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that. How do I feel about it? Does it make me scared? Does it make me afraid? Does it make me feel anxious, nervous? Fear and anxiety. Natasha says, "Take your soma, I mean meds, and move on."
Move on. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're close to that.
All right, folks. That's all I got for today.
All right.
We be done, Charlie.
I think we be done. Yep.
We thank you for being here. If you like what we're doing in this program, I will start with the blogs as I have time. My personal world is starting to lighten up, and I have plenty of stories I'd like to write, just short little commentaries on roadtoconcord.com. I'm going to start blogging there and bringing certain stories that I see and just reposting them there and using it as just, it's a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview show. We don't hide that here. But the theology, the religious side of it, the Bible side of it, that's on Wednesdays, We Who Are Lost. Here, we're still back to natural law, trying to figure things out. I don't want to separate them. Please understand the biblical way of looking at things. There is no such thing as secular and religious. There's set apart and ordinary. There's holy, consecrated, and then there's ordinary every day. This show is the ordinary every day. Think of it as the world. And then our Wednesday show is spiritual. So that's the set apart, the Kadesh. I think of them as united, one and the same. But for the sake of some of our classmates who have expressed, personally and privately to me, they're not comfortable with me tying too much of the religion in here. I'll separate them a little bit, but let me make it very clear. I am prone to throwing you in the pew on this show at any moment. I reserve the right to do so. And I'm not going to run from it if I feel led to do so. So just make sure you're aware of that. But that's the reason for the split. And I still hope that those who prefer the political commentary and things like what we did today will join us on Wednesdays, because the two are united. You cannot get the founder's worldview without the Bible. Period. Not my words, theirs. So if you like what we're doing here, please share the show, spread the word, hit the share buttons, hit the like buttons. We really do need those like buttons. If you are so led to do, we'd appreciate it. Hit the share buttons and spread the word as best you can. We don't advertise, it's word of mouth. If you care to do so, we would greatly appreciate your support. Any amount you care to give us, it's great. But what we would love to have is everybody who is a regular class member in this show to just sign up to give us a $5 donation every month. Some of you do $5.65 so that we don't have to pay the fees, but I don't care. If we could just get everybody who tunes in on a regular basis to give us set up for $5 a month, that would greatly help us afford to pay the show without using credit cards. Because, yeah, folks, some of this show right now is on a credit card. It's the only reason we're here. This is a service to our fellow man, our fellow citizens, our fellow believers. And if you think I'm kidding about that, email me. I'll give you some of the financial details. We're not making money here. We're just trying to stay alive. We depend on you for that. Word of mouth and financially. Oh, also, if you're going to send somebody brand new to the show, go ahead and warn them about me. I know darn well that I'm an acquired taste. Some people never acquire the taste. I get it. But if you've got a friend that appreciates straight shooting as I understand it, the truth as I understand it, somebody who's going to try to watch their language as best he can. It's not easy for a former Marine, let me tell you. But still call things, call balls and strikes. They might eventually learn to like us. Charlie moderates me, and Natasha humbles me from time to time. You don't see the comments in the background, but I do, because we can see things in the studio. I get yelled at. I get chastised. I get told to behave. And I depend on them. I also depend on y'all. Thank you for being here. We love each and every one of you. We appreciate you. If you're here Wednesday, we'll see you Wednesday. There will be no show on We Who Are Lost on Friday. It's the 4th. We're going to take that off. But we'll see you Wednesday if you're so inclined. Until then, y'all take care. Stay safe.